A sharp, sterile light flickered above, casting erratic shadows on the cold concrete walls. The air smelled of sweat, metal, and something acrid that stung the back of Agent Zero's throat. He awoke with a start, his senses on high alert before his mind had even registered the situation. His wrists and ankles ached, cuffed, restrained. The metallic tang of blood lingered on his tongue. Where was he? The room was a cell, windowless, the walls lined with reinforced steel. A single heavy door loomed ahead, unmarked, impersonal. Panic threatened to creep in, but he forced it back. He had been trained for this. Except, he didn't remember how he got here. The gaps in his memory sent ice down his spine. Last thing he remembered? A mission. No, a shadow of one. A flash of movement, the glint of a sniper's scope. Then nothing. A sudden blaring siren shattered the silence. Red emergency lights pulsed, bathing the cell in a hellish glow. Agent Zero tensed. The facility was under attack. Or perhaps an escape was underway. Either way, it was an opportunity. Heavy boots thundered outside his door, accompanied by shouts in a language he couldn't immediately place. A deep explosion rocked the foundation, dust and debris raining from above. A split second later, his door clicked, then slid open. A guard stood in the threshold, rifle raised. For the briefest moment, the man hesitated. Agent Zero moved. A sharp twist of his body sent his still-cuffed hands up, deflecting the rifle just as the guard pulled the trigger. A burst of gunfire tore through the far wall, missing him by inches. He drove his knee into the man's ribs, followed by a brutal elbow to the temple. The guard crumpled before he could cry out. Zero dropped to his knees, rifling through the man's gear. A keycard, a combat knife. The cuff snapped open with a satisfying click. He flexed his fingers, shaking out the residual ache. More boots approached from the hallway. He slipped into the corridor just as another explosion roared through the compound. The ceiling trembled. The facility was breaking apart. Adrenaline carried him forward as he ducked through the chaos, avoiding the armed men scrambling in the opposite direction. Gunfire echoed through the halls. Some prisoners had gotten loose. Security was overwhelmed. At a corner, he pressed against the wall, catching sight of a row of monitors in an open security bay. His own face stared back at him, plastered across an international news broadcast. Agent Zero, most wanted, international assassin at large. His breath hitched. This was bigger than he thought. He wasn't just captured, he had been framed. The sound of approaching soldiers snapped him back to the moment. Answers would have to wait. He had one objective now, escape. And then, find out who had done this to him. The hunt had just begun. The city was alive with flickering neon and the distant hum of traffic, but Agent Zero remained in the shadows. Every muscle in his body was taut, his mind still reeling from the events at the Black Site prison. The world believed he was an assassin. His memory was fractured. And now, he had a single lead, Dr. Evelyn Carter. A burner phone, stolen from an unsuspecting bystander, buzzed in his hand. The message on the screen was simple but chilling. They're watching. Meet me at Pier 17. Midnight. EC. Zero exhaled slowly, glancing around. Even in the anonymity of the bustling city, he knew eyes were everywhere. He needed answers, and Carter was the key. The docks at Pier 17 were nearly deserted by the time Zero arrived. A thick fog rolled off the water, swirling around the dim security lamps. He moved cautiously, his instincts on edge. His fingers hovered near the holstered pistol he'd stolen from one of the guards during his escape. A figure emerged from the mist, a woman, wrapped in a long coat, her hair tied back. Dr. Evelyn Carter. You came, she whispered, glancing around nervously. I wasn't sure you'd get the message. Zero studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Start talking? Carter swallowed hard. You don't remember, do you? He shook his head. No, but the world thinks I killed someone, and I need to know why. Her expression darkened. It's worse than you think. You were part of a project, an experiment, designed to create the ultimate covert operative. They erased your memories, trained you to obey. But something went wrong. You broke free. And now, they need to erase you permanently. Before he could respond, headlights flared in the distance. A convoy of black SUVs sped toward them. Carter's face went pale. They found us? Run, Zero ordered. But it was too late. The SUVs skidded to a halt, and masked operatives poured out, weapons drawn. Carter turned to flee, but a tranquilizer dart struck her in the neck. She staggered, her eyes widening in terror as she collapsed into Zero's arms. No, he growled, pulling his gun. Gunfire erupted. Zero moved instinctively, dodging behind a shipping crate as bullets sparked against metal. He fired back, dropping two of the masked men, but more kept coming. He needed an exit. A second later, Carter's unconscious body was dragged into one of the SUVs. The tires screeched as it sped away, disappearing into the night. Zero's pulse thundered in his ears. They had taken her, and with her, the answers he desperately needed. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The city was suffocating under the weight of a relentless downpour. Neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, distorting the world in hues of red and blue. Agent Zero kept to the shadows, his breath steady despite the storm raging both outside and within him. The hunt had begun, and he was the prey. They were closing in. He could feel them. Mercenaries and former allies turned hunters, tracking his every move. He had to disappear before they found him. And there was only one man who could help. Dante Ghost Ramirez, a former Black Ops specialist. Ghost had walked away from the life years ago. No allegiances, no flags, just a shadow in the underground. If Zero had any chance of surviving this, he needed Ghost on his side. Finding Ghost wasn't easy. Zero had to move through the labyrinth of back-alley contacts and underworld fixers, trading favors and secrets to get a single name. The Hollow. A bar buried beneath the city, accessible only to those who knew where to look. Zero slipped inside, scanning the dimly lit room. The Hollow was a den for ex-operatives, mercs, and spies without a country. In the farthest booth, a man sat alone, sipping whiskey like the world outside didn't exist. Ghost! Zero approached, sliding into the seat across from him. Long time. Ghost didn't look up. You've got the wrong guy. You're the only one who can help me. Ghost exhaled, finally meeting Zero's gaze. Funny, last time we spoke, you said you'd never need help. Zero leaned in. They took Carter. Ghost went still. For a moment, the weight of unspoken history hung between them. Then, with a resigned sigh, he downed his drink. Tell me everything. Zero laid it out, the prison, the setup, the cryptic message. Ghost listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When Zero finished, Ghost smirked. You're in deeper than you know. Then help me dig my way out. Ghost studied him for a long moment before nodding. All right, but we do this my way. Hours later, they sat in a makeshift safe house, decrypting files stolen from a hidden server. The data was heavily protected, layers of security shielding its secrets. But Ghost was patient and brilliant. Finally, a string of coordinates appeared on the screen. Siberia. Ghost leaned back, rubbing his temple. Looks like we're going somewhere cold. Zero clenched his jaw. The answers were there, waiting in the frozen wasteland. But so were the people who wanted him dead. The hunt isn't over, Zero muttered. It's just beginning. The Siberian air cut like a blade. freezing breath before it could escape into the darkness. Agent Zero and Dante Ghost Ramirez crouched on a ridge overlooking the facility, its harsh floodlights illuminating a compound surrounded by razor wire fences and heavily armed guards. The Obsidian Order had built this place to be impenetrable, but they weren't dealing with ordinary intruders. Dante adjusted his thermal scope. Multiple hostiles. Sniper on the southwest tower. Rotating patrols every 5 minutes. Zero nodded. We go in quiet, take out comms first. They moved like phantoms, slipping through the perimeter unnoticed. Zero disabled the external security cameras while Dante neutralized the guard in the watchtower with a silent knife throw. The body slumped forward, lifeless. Inside, the facility smelled of antiseptic and old secrets. Rows of metallic corridors stretched ahead, the hum of unseen machines filling the air. They navigated through restricted areas, bypassing biometric scanners using stolen credentials from a downed operative. A secure door loomed before them. Zero hacked into the system, forcing the lock open. Inside, they found a series of old terminals and file cabinets filled with classified reports. But what caught their attention was a row of video logs, flickering monitors displaying grainy footage. Zero's own face stared back at him from the screen. A younger version, restrained, dazed, eyes devoid of recognition. A scientist narrated over the footage. Subject 0. Initial augmentation successful. Neural conditioning in progress. The images shifted, showing other test subjects writhing under experimental procedures. Then came the final entry. Project Nemesis terminated. Subject 0 escaped. Facility shut down. Remaining assets reallocated. Dante tensed. You weren't the only one. Zero's hands clenched into fists. The program had ended, but not everything had been erased. Someone was still out there. A distant alarm blared. Their presence had been detected. Zero grabbed the hard drive containing the logs. We need to move. Gunfire erupted in the corridor as Obsidian Order operatives swarmed in. Dante returned fire, taking down the first wave while Zero hurled a flash grenade, buying them precious seconds. They sprinted through the facility, dodging bullets and counterattacking with lethal precision. As they reached the exit, an explosion rocked the ground beneath them. The facility was collapsing. Dante glanced at Zero. Whatever they were hiding, they don't want anyone finding it. Zero exhaled sharply. Then we're on the right track. With the hard drive secured, they disappeared into the Siberian night, knowing their hunt had only just begun. The thick jungle canopy swallowed the fading light, casting long shadows over the uneven terrain. Every step Zero took was calculated, his senses hyper-aware of the unseen threats lurking within the dense foliage. Beside him, Dante moved with equal precision, his rifle raised, scanning for movement. They had followed the lead across continents, and now, deep in the heart of a jungle compound, they were close. Dr. Evelyn Carter was here, and they weren't leaving without her. Zero paused, glancing at his wrist-mounted tracker. We're close. 200 meters. Dante exhaled sharply. Then why does it feel like we're walking into a trap? Zero's jaw tightened. Because they were. The compound loomed ahead, a series of metal structures half hidden by the jungle's embrace. Spotlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the perimeter patrols. Armed guards moved in pairs, their radio chatter blending with the distant hum of insects. Zero pointed to a weak spot in the fence. We go in silent. Take out the security hub first. Dante nodded. Lead the way. They moved like shadows, slipping past the guards unnoticed. Zero scaled the outer fence, landing with barely a sound. A swift blade to the throat silenced the nearest sentry. Dante followed, taking down another, with a precise strike to the temple. They advanced toward the security hub, but before they could breach the entrance, the ground beneath them exploded. Zero was thrown backward, his ears ringing from the blast. He rolled to his feet, instincts taking over. From the smoke emerged a figure clad in tactical gear, rifle raised. "Welcome home, Zero." Zero froze. That voice, a ghost from his past. Malcolm Voss. The mercenary grinned, lowering his weapon slightly. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Dante moved beside Zero, gun trained on Voss. "Friend of yours?" Zero didn't answer. His mind raced, piecing together fractured memories. Voss had been there back when he was still a weapon, still under their control. Voss chuckled. "You really don't remember, do you?" Zero steadied his breathing. "I remember enough." Voss gestured around them. "This doesn't have to end in blood. Walk away, and I let you live." Zero tightened his grip on his knife. "Not without Carter." Voss sighed, shaking his head. "Then you leave me no choice." The jungle erupted in gunfire. Zero and Dante dove for cover as bullets shredded the vegetation. Zero returned fire, taking out two of Voss's men before rolling behind a fallen tree. Dante reloaded. "What's the plan?" Zero's eyes flickered to the compound. "We get inside. Now." Under the cover of smoke and chaos, they sprinted toward the entrance. Zero kicked the door open, sweeping the room with his pistol. Empty. Then a whisper. "Zero." Dr. Evelyn Carter. She was shackled to a chair, bruised but alive. Zero rushed forward, cutting her restraints. "We're getting you out." Her eyes locked onto his. "You don't understand. You weren't just an experiment. They designed you for something much darker." Zero's pulse pounded. "What do you mean?" Carter opened her mouth to answer, but the sound of approaching boots silenced her. Voss was coming, and this time, Zero would have to finish what had started years ago. Zero knew something was wrong the moment they entered the clearing. The jungle was too quiet, the usual hum of nocturnal life replaced by an eerie stillness. The compound loomed ahead, its floodlights casting harsh white beams across the damp earth. He could hear Dr. Evelyn Carter's shallow breathing behind him, feel the tension in her every step. Dante moved ahead, his rifle at the ready, leading them toward what was supposed to be an extraction point. But something did not add up. Zero had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming at him. "Dante," Zero said, his voice low. "Something feels off." Dante did not turn. "Just keep moving." That was when Zero saw it. The reflection of a red laser sight flickering against Dante's shoulder. Not from an enemy, from Dante himself. It was aimed at Zero's chest. Betrayal. Zero barely had time to react before the world erupted in chaos. The gunshot cracked through the night, and he twisted, feeling the bullet graze past his ribs. Pain flared, but he did not stop moving. He dove to the ground as more shots rang out, kicking up dirt and leaves. Carter screamed, stumbling backward, her hands raised in horror. "Dante, what are you doing?" Dante turned, his expression cold. "What I was ordered to do." Zero gritted his teeth, pressing a hand to his side to stem the bleeding. "You were playing me this entire time?" Dante shrugged, lowering his weapon slightly. "It was never personal, Zero. Orders are orders." Before Zero could respond, the jungle was alive with movement. Black-clad operatives emerged from the shadows, surrounding them. Carter was grabbed roughly, dragged away as she struggled against her captors. "No!" she screamed. "Zero!" Zero lunged forward, but Dante raised his weapon again. "Do not make this harder than it has to be." Zero calculated his odds. He was wounded, outnumbered, and unarmed. But giving up was never an option. He took a breath, then launched himself sideways. rolling into the undergrowth just as gunfire tore through the spot where he had stood. Branches whipped against his face as he ran, ignoring the burning pain in his side. He could hear Dante shouting orders behind him, but he did not stop. He had to get out. He had to find Carter. He had to uncover the truth behind this betrayal. After what felt like an eternity, he reached the riverbank. Blood loss made his vision blur, but he forced himself to keep moving. He stumbled down to the water's edge, where a hidden cache of supplies had been left earlier. He fumbled for the waterproof bag, yanking it open. Inside, a secure tablet blinked with an incoming message. He tapped the screen, breathing heavily. A single line of text appeared. Washington, D.C. holds the answers. Follow the money. Zero exhaled slowly, determination hardening his features. Dante's betrayal had nearly killed him, but it had also given him something valuable, a direction. He was going to Washington, and he was going to burn the whole corrupt web to the ground. The night air in Washington, D.C. was thick with tension. Rain slicked the streets, reflecting the neon glow of city lights as Zero maneuvered through the back alleys toward his target. Beneath the grand facade of power and democracy, something far more sinister thrived. A hidden war waged in the shadows. He had spent days tracking the underground bunker's location, piecing together cryptic messages and hidden clues. Now, standing before an unassuming government building, he knew this was it. He adjusted the tactical gear beneath his trench coat and took a deep breath before moving toward the entrance. Zero slipped past the main security with ease, blending into the darkness. The bunker's entrance was concealed beneath the building, accessible only through a restricted elevator. He had acquired the access codes through a stolen intelligence file, but he knew that getting in was the easy part. Surviving was another matter. The elevator hummed as it descended deep beneath the city. The reinforced steel door slid open, revealing a vast corridor lined with sterile white walls and biometric scanners. Zero moved swiftly, disabling cameras as he went, his pulse steady despite the gravity of what lay ahead. At the end of the corridor, a heavy metal door stood between him and Director Alexander Kane. With a final deep breath, Zero pressed his stolen access card against the panel. The door unlocked with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was bathed in a cold blue light, casting long shadows across an array of high-tech monitors. Standing at the center, waiting as if he had anticipated Zero's arrival, was Director Alexander Kane. Kane was a man of imposing stature, his presence alone enough to command attention. His silver hair was slicked back, his tailored suit pristine. He turned slowly, a knowing smirk playing at his lips. "Agent Zero," Kane said, his voice smooth and deliberate. Right on time, Zero kept his stance firm, his eyes scanning the room for threats. "Cut the theatrics. I want answers." Kane chuckled, stepping closer. "You have always wanted answers, have you not? It is in your nature. That is what makes you different." Zero clenched his fists. "Enough games." Kane sighed, gesturing toward the massive screen behind him. A series of images flickered to life. Footage of Zero in action, executing missions he did not remember, eliminating targets without hesitation. "You were never meant to remember," Kane said. "That was the design. You were the prototype, the first of a new breed of agents. No memories, only missions. A perfect soldier." Zero felt his stomach tighten. He had always known there were gaps, things he could not explain, but hearing it confirmed sent a chill through his veins. "You erased me," Zero said, his voice low. "Turned me into a machine." Kane tilted his head. "We freed you from the burden of choice. And now, I offer you that freedom once more." A hidden panel slid open, revealing a case containing a sleek, black device. Kane gestured toward it. "One command, and all of this vanishes. You can return to the program, reclaim your purpose." Or you can destroy everything and bring down the very system that created you. Zero's breath was steady, but inside his mind raced. He had spent years searching for the truth, and now, faced with it, he realized the weight of his next move. Rejoining the program would mean embracing his past as a weapon, but destroying it meant dismantling something far bigger than himself. Kane's eyes gleamed. What will it be, Zero? Zero reached for his gun, his decision made. One way or another, this ended tonight. The cold blue glow of the bunker's monitors flickered wildly as alarms blared through the underground facility. Zero stood poised, his muscles tense, his mind calculating the fight ahead. Across from him, Director Kane's elite enforcers, clad in black tactical gear, their visors gleaming under the fluorescent lights, raised their weapons in unison. "Kill him," Kane ordered, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Zero moved before they could react. He lunged forward, his body a blur as he grabbed the first enforcer's rifle, twisting it upward. A shot rang out, shattering one of the massive monitors behind them. He used the momentum to drive his knee into the enforcer's gut before slamming an elbow into the man's temple. The soldier crumpled, unconscious. Gunfire erupted. Zero dove behind a steel console, feeling the heat of bullets tearing through the air above him. Sparks rained down as the rounds shredded through the electronic systems. He reached for a discarded pistol, rolling out from cover and firing two precise shots. One into an enforcer's shoulder, another into a knee. The man screamed, collapsing to the floor. Another attacker rushed him. Zero blocked a baton strike, countering with a swift kick to the ribs. The enforcer staggered back, and Zero seized the opening, wrapping an arm around the man's throat and wrenching him into a chokehold. Within seconds, the enforcer went limp. The last two soldiers hesitated, glancing at each other. Zero could see the uncertainty in their stance, the slight tremor in their grip. "You do not have to die for him," Zero said coldly. "Walk away." For a moment, neither moved. Then one dropped his weapon and took a step back. The other followed. Zero did not waste time watching them leave. He turned his attention to the massive server array dominating the far end of the room. This was the heart of the program, the digital prison that stored every detail of his stolen past and the blueprints for countless more agents like him. Zero holstered his weapon and sprinted to the nearest terminal. His fingers flew over the keys, bypassing security protocols with a series of rapid commands. The screen flashed warnings. "Are you sure you want to initiate a full system purge?" Zero exhaled sharply. He pressed yes. The facility shuddered as the servers began to overload. Sparks burst from panels. Screens flickered violently, and an ominous hum filled the air as years of classified intelligence began to unravel. Red emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie glow. A slow, deliberate clap echoed behind him. Zero turned to find Kane standing amidst the chaos, his composed expression betraying no fear. "Impressive," Kane mused, "but you have only delayed the inevitable. Do you think erasing data will stop the program? We are an idea, Agent Zero. Ideas cannot be killed." Zero leveled his gun at Kane. "Then I will start with you." Kane smirked. "I was hoping you would say that." With unexpected speed, Kane lunged, knocking the gun aside. The two men crashed into the central console, fists flying. Kane was stronger than he looked, his strikes calculated and brutal. Zero blocked a punch aimed at his jaw, countering with a sharp knee to Kane's ribs. They grappled, crashing through shattered monitors and sparking wires. Kane managed to draw a hidden blade, slashing at Zero's shoulder. Pain seared through him, but he did not falter. He grabbed Kane's wrist, twisting it violently until the knife clattered to the floor. "You were never meant to win," Kane hissed. Zero drove his fist into Kane's face, sending him stumbling backward. The facility trembled violently as the servers overheated. Fire erupted from an overloaded terminal, and explosions rattled the underground structure. Zero saw the collapse coming. He turned toward the exit, but Kane lunged again, grabbing his wrist. "If I die, you die with me," Kane snarled. Zero wrenched free, delivering a final, bone-crushing kick to Kane's chest. The force sent Kane staggering backward, straight into the collapsing server stack. The structure groaned before giving way, burying Kane in a fiery cascade of metal and flames. Zero did not wait to see if he survived. He sprinted through the facility as explosions tore through the walls, flames licking at his heels. The ceiling buckled, debris crashing down around him. He lunged through the bunker's main corridor, diving just as the blast behind him engulfed everything in a wave of fire and smoke. Zero emerged into the cold Washington night, coughing, his body aching. The bunker was gone, reduced to a smoldering crater beneath the city. The program was dead. Or at least, that was what he needed to believe. He straightened, inhaling deeply. There was still unfinished business, loose ends to tie up, and a world that needed to know the truth. With one last glance at the destruction behind him, Zero disappeared into the night. The flames still smoldered behind him, casting an eerie glow against the Washington night sky. Smoke curled upward, a silent testament to the battle that had just concluded. Zero stood at the edge of the destruction, his breath steady despite the pain coursing through his body. He had done it. The facility was gone. Kane was dead, or at least buried beneath the wreckage. Yet, a part of him knew it was not truly over. The cool night air wrapped around him as he stepped away from the ruins, his mind already processing his next move. He could not stay here. The agency, the government, and whatever was left of Kane's network would come looking for him. He was still a fugitive, still a name whispered in classified briefings and top-secret discussions. He had no past to return to, but for the first time in a long while, the future was his to shape. Zero moved with purpose, slipping into the alleyways that crisscrossed the city's underbelly. The streets of Washington, D.C. were quiet at this hour. The city's power players tucked away in their ivory towers, oblivious to the war that had just raged beneath their feet. His wounds ached, but he ignored them. Pain was nothing new. He needed to disappear, to become a ghost once more. He retrieved a burner phone from his pocket, one of many he had stashed across the city, and sent a single encrypted message to an old contact. "It is done. I am going dark." He discarded the phone immediately, tossing it into a storm drain before slipping into the shadows. By the time the sun rose, Agent Zero would no longer exist. Across the city, in a high-security intelligence facility, a lone analyst sat hunched over a terminal, his face illuminated by the dim blue light of the screen. The data stream flickered erratically, evidence of the massive purge Zero had initiated. Yet, as the analyst dug deeper, he found something strange. A single encrypted file had been rerouted before the servers crashed, shunted to a backup system that should not have existed. The file's name blinked ominously on the screen. The analyst hesitated before clicking it open. His eyes widened as classified schematics, detailed psychological profiles, and operational blueprints filled the screen. At the top of the document, a single line of text stood out. Agent Zero, decommissioned. Beneath it, another name had already taken its place. Agent Omega, activated, far from Washington. In a darkened chamber where no light reached, a figure sat in silence. Monitors flickered along the walls, displaying fragments of erased data, recovered in fragments. A voice crackled through an intercom. "Sir, the program is compromised. Kane is presumed dead. The data purge was extensive, but we managed to salvage something." A pause. Then measured breathing. Begin the next phase. The monitor shifted, showing a new dossier. A new agent. A new weapon. The battle was far from over. And Zero knew, wherever he went, that one day he would have to face what came next. But for now, he walked into the unknown, free for the first time in his life.